6D, update on the coal tar pavement sealant ban and recent USGS studies on PAH levels in Lady Bird Lake sediments. Mateo Scoggins, Watershed Protection Department. Welcome, Mr. Scoggins.
Thank you. It's very nice to be up here. Mateo Scoggins, I'm a biologist with the Watershed Protection Department. I'm hoping to make this very short and sweet. I think it'll be good news for y'all. I've been working at the city for 20-odd years, and this is one of those times when you get to look back and feel like you maybe did something useful. United States Geological Survey recently released a paper, and I provided it in your backup, that showed some really encouraging results from some coring work that they've done in Lady Bird Lake. And I'm going to go over the results of that study, but I'm also just going to give you a quick update on where we are today as far as this idea of a ban on coal tar sealants. The City of Austin has been monitoring the sediment and the chemistry of our sediment for about 25 years, a lot more than most cities do. And this is kind of just to give you a feel for where we're monitoring.
I need a microphone. You got a pointer on the 12 o'clock point.
Can't I go up there?
Well, I need you on the mic.
There's not a they don't have a portable mic here.
Okay.
All right, there you go.
This is Lady Bird Lake, right kind of in the middle of downtown Austin. It used to be called Town Lake, if y'all remember. And we've been monitoring, as I said, all over the city for a long time. And what those red dots on there represent is places, hotspots that we've documented high levels of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which are a component that anytime any kind of carbon source gets burned or organic material gets burned, it can turn into these PAHs. And they're known carcinogens, and they have a lot of kind of environmental issues that we're still learning about. But what I want to point out is that Lady Bird Lake, right in the middle of Austin there, is an exceptional place to look at what the effects of all the tributaries that surround Lady Bird Lake. This is where all of kind of heavily urbanized Austin drains into Lady Bird Lake. So the USGS Geological Survey has been doing cores in Lady Bird Lake since the late 90s. And in 2000, they published this paper that showed that PAHs were increasing substantially, kind of dramatically, in lakes across the country, and they used Lady Bird Lake as one of their examples. And I think it's just good to understand that this was published at that point in time, and we'd already been sampling in our streams and been seeing a lot of these hot spots around town. And we were kind of working with them a little bit to try to understand what was the source of these PAHs. A lot of the kind of previous kind of historic ideas were that they were from car exhaust or maybe from brake linings or used motor oil. What happened in about 2003 is that we started looking at one of those hot spots, which was right above Barton Springs, and a fellow by the name of Tom Bashara, who many of you may know, or knew, I should say, was standing at the top of a parking lot in one of the tributaries, and he walked up that tributary, and as we went up that, we collected sediment samples, and as the farther we went up that tributary, the higher those concentrations became. And he got to the top of the tributary and saw this parking lot and realized that it was coated with a black substance that he'd been in contact with in the commercial kind of construction trade. And he started looking around the city and in Home Depot stores and places where construction materials were sold, and dug up a whole lot of really important information about this sealant. And a lot of what he kind of kicked off was this idea that this sealant was being applied all over Austin at the rate of about 600,000 gallons a year, that it was an extremely potent source of these polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, that it's basically a waste product from the coal, the steel industry, that is being used in these sealants all over the country, mostly in the eastern part of the country, that our creeks in Austin had contamination in over 13% of them at levels above which you'd expect to see kind of important biological effects. The work that was done initially in those first few years led us to do some ecological kind of targeted work to say, okay, well, we've got these high PAHs. Are we actually seeing them in our streams? And if they are in our streams from these particular sources, do they cause any ecological problems? And we published a series of papers and did a lot of work at the USGS and came up with a pretty compelling argument that this was a big problem. And in 2006, the council unanimously voted to ban the use of coal tar sealants in Austin. The ban basically prohibited the use of the sealant and the sale of the sealant as long as it was, you could show that it was not intended to be used within Austin. Again, that was 2006. It was about 5 years of really hard work that a lot of people in the city worked on. And we've been enforcing it currently basically up till now on a complaint basis. If someone sees or smells something, they report it to our spills group, and they're actually here tonight if anyone has any questions about enforcement. And that's basically, we've only had a handful of violations since that ban went into place. So that's kind of the history, and this is the story of the night. So basically, it's a little complicated, and we're going to spend a minute looking at this graph, but I'd like you all to please focus on it for a second. What you're looking at is, again, these sediment cores. What they do, the USGS does, is they drop these core collecting tubes down into the lake sediments. And what those sediments tell you is because they've been deposited over time, they give you a historical record of what's gone on over time. And again, I mentioned that green line that you see there, that was collected in about 1998, and that showed an increase up to the last time, the top of the sediment. So what they've been doing over the last 12 years is they've gone back, they went back in 2000, then they went back in 2012 and in 2014, repeating these same cores. And what's fascinating about this graph to me is that these cores were all collected 12 years apart, yet they all tell a very consistent story. And what that story is that we did see increases in these pHs over time from the 60s up through about into the 2000 and up to kind of the 2000 range, that we leveled off for a little while there. And then after about 2006, they started plummeting. And what you're seeing, that 7.98 in that purple, that's the average concentration of PAHs in Lady Bird Lake if you look at only the data that they collected between 1998 and 2005. And that's the average concentration basically when we started looking at and when we passed the ban. If you look at all the data that's been collected from 2005 to 2012, the average of that is about not 3.3, it's about 4.5, and that's a 44% decrease in pHs. But if you only look at the data that's been there in the last 2 years, from 2012 to 2014, which is the most recently deposited sediments, that's a 58% decrease in the concentration of this important priority pollutant from that 8 milligrams per liter in 2005 down to 3 1/3 milligrams per liter currently. So this is really encouraging to me. It's really exciting. Another important result of this is not only are we seeing consistent decreases, but the fingerprint of the pHs that they documented over this entire time period definitely call out coal tar sealant as the dominant source of pHs in the lake all through the whole entire time period, which means that since we've stopped the use of this pollutant in Austin, we're going to continue to see drops in that as this legacy source kind of slowly works its way through our system and out of it, hopefully, and degrades over time. So that's really the story. It's really exciting. There's a few questions and thoughts we wanted to leave you with. One is that currently Austin is the only municipality in Texas that's passed a ban. There have been bans passed in other parts of the country. Wisconsin, Minnesota, the state of Washington has passed a ban of some form in the Northwest. Washington, D.C. passed a ban. In Central Texas, though, all around our jurisdiction, there really hasn't been a lot of activity. The Edwards Aquifer Conservation District has passed a ban in certain sensitive areas of the lower kind of San Antonio part of the aquifer. What was the other one? Someone else has been looking at it. San Antonio is looking at a ban just in the city, and they're kind of looking at moving. The council is talking about doing that next year. Just to also, we continue to monitor in our streams and in the lake, and we're going to continue doing that to kind of monitor this over time. So we care, and we'll be working with USGS in the future. There are potential human health risks with this pollutant, and the USGS has done a lot of work looking at how it moves from parking lots into homes through dust, and how actually playgrounds and other areas are a risk for children. And at a press conference that Lloyd Doggett recently did with our mayor, Congressman Doggett announced that he's intending to file a bill in the next session to look at a national ban on coal tar sealants. So that's pretty exciting. That's what I've got for you tonight. Do you guys have any questions?
Mr. Deegan?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm curious if you know what kind of sealant products have replaced this in the marketplace and what, if any, risks might be associated with those.
Sure. In Austin, it's been a pretty much 100% replacement with asphalt-based sealants. They're, instead of being the coke product from the steel, they're made from the kind of an oil product, an oil-based product. They have dramatically lower levels of PAHs. They have some other potential issues, maybe a little bit of heavy metals in there, but they're literally not even on the radar compared to what we were seeing in those coal tar sealants. They do wear off parking lots and they do get into our waterways, so they're a potential issue. But from the kind of work that we've done so far, from a toxicity perspective and some of the other kind of water quality risks, they're extremely low, even compared to like used motor oil and some of the other kind of normal pollutants that we see.
Okay, thank you.
And just to clarify, in the West Coast part of the United States, that's what they've been using for the last 60 years. So there's a lot of people and there's a lot of kind of history in that product. In the East Coast, kind of from the Rockies east, it's mostly been coal tar and it continues to be, but we're hoping that that same trend kind of moves that direction. Any other questions?
Yes, Ms. Neely?
I have a quick question. Was that parking lot in Barton Hills?
Let's
Yes.
see, yes.
That's my neighborhood.
I think it was your parking lot.
Well, I'm glad we participated in your scientific breakthrough.
Well, I noticed that you all put out a potential recommendation that we might adopt, and do you want to say anything about that?
Sure. We put some language together. There is I think it would be potentially useful to encourage council, mayor, and council to look at support of that national ban when that kind of starts moving forward.
I would be happy to make that motion since it was my parking lot.
Right. Well, I need to ask one more question because I think there's a little bit of clarification here. It says amend City of Austin federal legislative program to support a national ban on coal tar-based pavement sealants. What does that mean, the City of Austin federal legislative amending their program? I don't quite follow that.
Every time that that U.S. legislation goes into session, I think City Council puts together their kind of priorities. And I think that we're talking about amending the current status of that. Chris Harrington can actually answer, or Chuck can too. Yeah.
Madam Chair, that's correct. Each year the city adopts a legislative agenda, things that they're trying to work with Congress to address, and this would be to recommend inclusion of this on that list.
So it's not really changing something, it's adding it into the legislative program. Okay.
That's correct.
All right. Now I'm clear. So, thank you. If no one has anything else to ask Mr. Scoggins, we're going to move on. And Ms. Neely has a
Yes, I have a motion.
Yes.
My motion is to amend the City of Austin federal legislative program to support a national ban on coal tar-based pavement sealants. And the rationale is, whereas the City of Austin Watershed Protection Department and the United States Geological Survey have documented that PAHs in coal tar pavement sealants are toxic to aquatic life and established probable human exposure routes for these suspected carcinogens. And whereas the United States Geological Survey published findings in 2014 demonstrating that the City of Austin local ban on coal tar-based pavement sealants has successfully reduced the concentration of PAHs in the sediments of Lady Bird Lake. Therefore, the Environmental Board recommends that the Austin City Council add support for a nationwide ban on the use of coal tar pavement sealants to the City of Austin's federal legislative program for the 114th Congress.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Neely and seconded by Mr. Schisler that we vote to approve, recommend this action. Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. 6 in favor, none opposed, and 1 absent. Thank you for your work, Mr. Scoggins and others. Appreciate it. Okay.